Today I'm going to be talking about an addition to my trains, actually to my train room. I've been collecting trains for the last just over 2 years, and in those 2 years I've bought a number of engines. And what ends up happening is you don't really know where to put the engines, and so you end up doing something like this. And so I decided to buy train display shelves. If you look at anybody's train room, you always see the shelves around the room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to install the shelves in my train room. So let's get started. Okay, so what I did was I ended up buying the Glenn Snyder Display Shelving System, and I'm sure most of you know that shelving system. I went on to the OGR forum, and a lot of people recommended that that's the shelf to get. So I went ahead and ordered it through them, and here it is. It comes in a long tube, and the section is 6 feet long. And I'll go ahead and open it. This must be some packing material that keeps the shelf from moving in the tube. I ordered 2 of them. To make sure everything's out of here. I think it's just a lot of packing material. So these are the shelves. They look pretty sturdy. They're aluminum. And the directions say to use number 10, 1.5 inch screws. You can use panhead, sheet metal. I ended up buying some sheet metal screws. So what I'll do is I'll show you guys where I'm actually going to install the shelves. So I had this wall built when I decided to build these trains down here, and as you can see, this side of the wall, this is inside the train room. This side of the wall is unfinished. I didn't really care about adding plaster because it's about functionality. I wanted this room to be secure, since it's it's underneath my laundromat. So the advantage of this is that I don't have to use a stud finder to find the studs. They're already exposed, and I'll be mounting the shelves to this wall. And the wall is I only have about 7 feet of space of horizontal space. So what I'm going to be doing is Glenn Snyder, they recommend building the first shelf, the bottom one first, and then working your way up. So the first shelf I'm going to build is going to be pretty low, and then I'll go from there. And I figure if I start low, I'll be able to utilize as much space of this wall as I can for the shelving. And I only bought 2 shelves for now, so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and show you guys how I'm mounting these shelves. I'll go ahead and mount the first one off camera, and then I'll mount the second one on camera. So I will be right back. Okay, so what I did was I attached the first shelf to the studs, and it's surprisingly easy to do. It's pretty simple. You just got to make sure that you mark out where the holes are going to go on the back of the shelf, and in relation to the studs, and then you got to make sure that the shelf is level. So what they recommend, what Glenn Snyder Shelving recommends, is that when you first install the first shelf, you use that as a basis, and that's why I say you got to make sure it's perfectly level. And what you use is a spacer to help you get the appropriate spacing between the first and second shelf and so on. And they recommend 5.5 inches to 6 inches for spacing, so I use 6 inches. And I cut out these 2x3s to 6 inches, and I double checked that the second shelf is still level, even though the bottom shelf is perfectly level and the spacers are exactly 6 inches. I still wanted to double check, and that's probably what you want to do. You don't want these shelves to be crooked, because you're going to basically do the same thing for the third shelf. For the fourth shelf, you're going to be using the spacers, and if the base is not level, the next shelf isn't going to be level either. So what I did, this is perfectly level. This is where I'm going to put it. So what I do is I go down here and I put a little tick mark on the top of the shelf here to show that that's where I'm going to put the hole. Another tick mark here. Another tick mark here. Here. And I think I'm going a little bit overkill with the screws. I'm using 5 screws. I figure better to be safe than sorry. You've got engines that cost a lot of money, and you don't want these shelves collapsing. So I figure it's better to be safe than sorry. So I marked out 5 points where I'm going to drill the holes. So the next thing I'll do is I will go ahead and drill the holes on the back of the shelf. Okay, so I have the rail, the shelving set up. What I did was I took a couple of blocks and basically hung the back of the shelf on these blocks so that I could use it to as a backing when I screw the holes into the shelving. So what I need to do is find the first tick mark, which I can see, and there's a groove on the back of the shelf that you can place your drill bit on so that the alignment is perfect every time for the hole. And you find the groove, and you line it up, the hole where you're going to drill the hole with the tick mark that you made earlier, and then you drill. Okay, and the metal is pretty soft, so it's really not hard to drill the holes. It doesn't take much effort. So then what I do is I look for the next tick mark. I start on each end, and the other tick mark is right here. So I make sure the drill bit is sitting in the groove, lined up with the tick mark, and you start drilling. Okay, that's 2. I got 3 more to do. Now the last one is on the very end. And that's all there is to it. 5 holes. So now what we'll go ahead and do is we will place the shelf back down and mark out on the studs where the holes are going to go, drill some pilot holes, and then screw the sheet metal screws into the studs. Okay, so what I did was I set the shelf back up onto the spacers. I did double check that it was still level, and it is. So now all I've got to do is mark out the holes on the studs so I know where to put the pilot holes. So I just use a permanent marker to make a little mark on the Alrighty. So then what I'm going to do is remove this. And then I will drill the pilot holes. And obviously when you drill the pilot holes, you want to make them smaller than the screw itself. I'm using a 3/32 size drill here. Glenn Snyder, they recommend a 1/8 inch. I didn't have a 1/8 inch, so I used 3/32. So I only did 2 pilot holes, just the ends, and then what I'll do is I'll drill the pilot holes after I put the first 2 screws in. Make sure everything's level again. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now we'll go ahead and screw these in. Start at that end. Now I'll go to this end. Okay, so now that I pretty much have it in place, I'll drill the pilot holes on the inside, on the middle holes. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and screw in the rest of the screws. I can remove these spacers now that the shelf is in place. And tighten everything down. And that's it. All finished. Okay, so you can see I placed my engines on the shelves. I've got my 844, my Centipede, my Williams U33, and that's only some of them. I just wanted to put these on here to show you guys how it fits, and they fit pretty well. Here's a close-up of the shelf and the bolt that I used. The bolts don't end up getting in the way of the train. When you place the train right in front of the bolt doesn't rub against the train that's sitting right in front of it. So there's plenty of clearance. So that pretty much concludes this, this video. So just remember, guys, to click on the subscribe button on the upper left-hand corner of your screen, and we'll catch you guys later.